Hey everyone, how are you? It is such a good day. I spent my morning coaching some of my awesome clients, and now I get to hang out with you. So, what could be better? I'm really happy to be here. Happy to see you. Thanks for joining me. While we're waiting for a Zoom to bring everyone on, let me just check my settings here. If someone could type in the Q&A and just let me know that you can hear me, I would really appreciate that. Just want to make sure my settings are right. Nothing worse than recording a whole webinar and then finding out no one can hear you. So thank you, Susan. Okay, listen, while we're waiting for Zoom to bring everyone on and everyone to trickle in, I thought I would just share quickly an experience that I had with you recently. A few weeks ago, we were able to travel to Southern California for a much needed getaway at the beach. And I feel a little guilty saying that because I know a lot of you really want to get away right now. But honestly, it was heaven. It was just, it's so easy to forget that the world is a little crazy when you're watching the waves and have your toes in the sand and you're watching the kids play and running in the surf and the sunsets. It was really heavenly. But there was one day in particular that kind of made me pause and reflect and redirect my brain. And I wanted to share that experience with you because I think it might be something that all of you or most of you are likely to be experiencing at this time right now. And this particular day, as we were walking the short distance from our resort to the beach, we encountered this gal who was sitting on the curb, and a kiddo was walking toward her, not a kiddo, but like a young man. And she just started screaming at him. She let loose on him. And I'm guessing he was her boyfriend. She'd been waiting for him for a bit. So we heard, and she shared with everyone in that area. She was not happy at all. And she berated him for several minutes, just screaming and swearing at the top of her lungs. It did not let up. And of course, there are other people walking by, and she was really causing quite a scene. And then, if people looked at her or noticed her, then she started screaming at them too. And I told my kids, that's what emotional vomit looks like. It's just disturbing to see someone like so out of control, so raging, and really not able to manage their emotions or their behavior. And then, so we had that experience. Then we continued walking along the harbor there and out to the beach. And as we were going through the harbor, I watched as another young mother started yelling at some teenagers who were walking by her. And they weren't interacting with her at all from what we could see, but she was shouting and angry and calling them these really horrible names, all while her little boy, who looked like he was about 4 or 5, was watching. He was just standing there and watching. And I thought, man, what is this world coming to? Where is the civility, right? Where is the management? Where is the kindness? This kind of behavior is just really outside of my comfort zone. And as we walked to the beach, I watched my brain and I was thinking things like, wow, the whole world's going crazy. People are nuts. That this is the dialogue in my head. And as I watched that happen and I saw that thought, I realized what my brain was doing. And I forced myself to take another look and look around and see all of the hundreds of smiling people, all of the civil and the polite people who were being considerate and who were enjoying their day and who were speaking kindly. There were so many good, kind, and loving people. And that's the thought that I asked my brain to look for and prove true. Both of those thoughts felt true to me, but the one that I chose to give the attention to felt so much better. So if you're watching the news at all right now, and perhaps your brain is telling you the same story that the whole world has gone crazy, it's simply not true. I want you to consider that the tiny percent of our population who is crazy and violent and loudest and getting all of the attention is really not a true reflection of our society as a whole. So many people are good and decent. I just want to offer you another way of looking at things. And when your brain tells you to be alarmed by all of the drama, direct yourself to look away and to observe what's good and normal and healthy. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. We always talk about that, like what I give my attention to grows, right? So if you find yourself feeling upset, uh, take that time to redirect your focus. take some time to meditate or to read something uplifting or to pray or count your blessings. Get involved in a positive cause. Do anything that helps you to redirect your brain and think in a healthier way. And that's really the work that I do as a life coach. I help my clients to manage their minds in a way that helps them to create the reality that they really want and that they choose intentionally. So, welcome to all of you who are just joining me. My name is Jane Copier. I'll just take a quick second and introduce myself. I'm a marriage coach. I'm certified through the Life Coach School, which is the premier coaching institution on the planet. And I'm really blessed to have received my extensive and ongoing training there. At the Life Coach School, we practice something that's called causal coaching, which is helping our clients to identify the root cause of their problems, the thinking that's creating their results in their life. And then through a very scientific process, we help fix that problem at the root. Rather than just giving you lots of action to take that just provides temporary relief, we really want to help you create a long-term solution to your problems. We help you rewire your thinking and help you enjoy your life in a really positive way that you might not have ever experienced before. So before we get started, I just wanted to share a quick message with you that I received from a client this past week. Let me pull it up here. She says, Jane, I'm so happy tonight. I had to shoot you a quick email. My husband came home from work today with a present for me. This never happens. As you know, sometimes I don't even get a present on my birthdays from him. Anyway, I had been talking about these Ninja ovens last week and how cool I thought they were. And tonight he showed up with one and said, I was just thinking of you and thought you might like it. I'm blown away. There have been so many small changes over the past few months, and they are all adding up to something wonderful. Thank you for helping me do this. I am creating the marriage I've always wanted. What? Seriously, I have the best job in the world. Thank you so much for sharing this story with me. I know it will inspire other people to get to work on their marriages too and help create the lives that they want. So I just can't even tell you how grateful I am to get messages like that from my clients and to know the difference that it's making for them. This is such a work that I'm passionate about, and I'm really passionate about helping people to create with intention the life that they want. So let's get going. I want to give a quick shout out and say thank you to all of those who submitted questions. We have some really good ones this month. And when you have the courage to ask a question, you not only help yourself, but you really do help other people who are watching as well. So thank you for your questions. I hope we can get to them all. We're going to go for 45 minutes and then we'll have to end. But I'll always start by teaching you the self-coaching model. I know we've got lots of new people, so I want to make sure you understand this model before we get going so you kind of know what we're talking about. If you're new to me, the self-coaching model was created by my coach and mentor, Brooke Castillo, as a way of organizing and understanding universal truths. And it helps us to understand how and why we're creating the results that we're experiencing. And we can also use it to help us create changes when we're wanting something new or different. So this is the way that it works. At the top of our model, we have the C line. That's the circumstance line. And a circumstance line is anything that happens outside of ourselves. It's facts. It's the math of the situation. It's just what is. It's the name of the president of the United States. It is the name of the model of the car that you drive. It is the number on the scale when you stand on it. It's what other people do or what other people say. It's all of those things that are beyond our control. That's the circumstance, and they're always neutral. Everyone in the world would have to agree that, yes, this is a fact. The things that we think about the circumstance, all of the opinion about the fact is our thought. Our thoughts. We have a thought about something that happens. Okay? We have a thought, and when we think a thought, we have two neural pathways or two neurons that make a gosh, Jane, can you talk today? Two neurons that make a connection in your brain. They connect, they cause a chemical reaction that releases chemicals and causes a vibration in your body. And that vibration is emotion. Okay, that's your feeling. So we have a thought that creates a feeling. And then the feeling that we're experiencing drives all of our actions. So if you think about this, when you're sad, how do you act? When you're happy, how do you act? The feeling always drives the actions, and the thought always creates the feeling. A lot of people think that the circumstance in the world creates the way that you feel, but it's always the thought in between that causes the feelings. We then take our actions, which create our results. And then you'll always know your result is always going to be tied back to the thought. So if you want to know what your result is going to be, you've got to pay really close attention to what you're thinking. What is my thought? What's happening in my brain? Okay, so now that you have a general understanding of the model, listen, if you have questions, pop them in the Q&A. I'll watch for that too, but I'll just keep going here. Now that you understand the model a little bit, we're going to read some of your questions, and when it's applicable, I'll plug them into the model, and then you can see how this is helping you to create what you're experiencing in your life. So Jackie, we'll start with yours. Jackie says, how do you deal with numbness in a marriage? I think I'm numb or indifferent with my husband because I'm tired of trying. I don't get mad anymore. I'm worried because I just don't care, and that scares me. How can I find out if there's anything left worth saving? I've watched you for a few of your other classes, and it seems like your solution is always to tell women to change their thoughts about their husband and expect that he will never change. This makes absolutely no sense to me. Am I supposed to accept that my husband is rude and doesn't clean up after himself, or that he looks at other women and is aggressive with me? It really makes no sense to me. Jackie, thank you so much for your question. You've got a couple of different questions within this question. So let's start with your feeling of being numb. This is often an emotional state that happens when we're trying to avoid feeling emotion. And it really isn't that there isn't any emotion there. We just get used to stuffing it down or pushing it away or avoiding it because we don't want to feel the pain. We think that we don't want to have that feeling anymore, so we push it away, right? But that's just not true. We really aren't numb. We're just avoiding it. So the question is for you, what is the emotion that I'm not willing to feel? What am I not allowing myself to feel? Is it pain? Is it sadness? Is it fear? Is it rejection or resentment? What is that feeling that you're so resistant to feeling? Asking yourself that question will help you find the answer. What is it that I'm not willing to feel? Once you find that underlying emotion and you learn how to allow it and process it, that's going to be the key to moving forward to that normal state of feeling again. When we say we feel numb, it's just kind of an excuse, like I don't want to explore any of that. And it's because it feels protective, right? When we feel numb, it's our brain's way of trying to protect us. We don't want to feel pain, but what happens is we make it so that we not only suppress the pain, but we don't really feel joy either. In the coaching world, we say you don't really feel the pain of the knife, but we also don't get to feel the pleasure of a massage. Meaning if you're not allowing negative emotion, you're likely not enjoying positive emotion either. So the key is really being willing to experience all of it, to feel all of it and allow it rather than suppressing it. Feeling is healing, truly, even though it sounds like it's going to be awful and like you're going to resist it every step of the way because your brain really does not want you to be uncomfortable. Just knowing that if I allow myself to feel, then I'll allow myself to heal. That's really true and important work that you can do. And that's something I can help you through in coaching. In answer to the second part of your question, am I supposed to change my thoughts and accept that my husband is rude and doesn't clean up after himself, or that he looks at other women and is aggressive with me? Well, the answer is absolutely no. You're not supposed to do anything. You're the one who gets to decide what's best for you. If you don't want to tolerate those things, it's absolutely your choice. You get to decide how you want to show up around that. But the truth is that most of us, oh, this is hard truth. Most of us have trained our spouses to be exactly what they are today. Now, that's not true for everyone. There are definitely some cases where this isn't true. But if you're really being honest with yourself and you're looking back over your history together, there was a first time when that poor behavior first happened. I want you to think about that for a minute. Like the first time that he acted in this poor manner, what was my reaction? Did I create a boundary? Did I ignore it? Just try to keep the peace? The things that we allow are the things that we are agreeing to, whether we really like it or not, whether we want to own that fact or not. If we allow poor behavior without addressing it, we're consenting to it. So if you want to create boundaries now, that's totally available to you. But as long as we believe that our spouse controls our feelings, we take on the role of the victim. And when we're a victim, there has to be a villain. So we've got the villain on one hand, we've got the victim on the other hand. We give all of our power to the villain when we claim that role as the victim. So owning your own emotional health by taking responsibility for the way that you feel will help you to give back, to get your control back, right? So it's completely possible for you to be happy without changing him one bit. That's the truth. It might feel impossible to you. Like, if he doesn't change, then how can I possibly be happy? But when you reclaim that power and you learn how to create happiness for yourself, regardless of what's happening with him, that's when you find joy. That's when you find satisfaction. That's when you feel confident in yourself. And that's not doing him a favor or letting him get away with anything. That's just doing yourself a favor by deciding how you want to think and how you want to feel, and then intentionally creating that for yourself. Okay, let's move to Jamie. Jamie says, one moment. Jamie says, I am lonely in my marriage. My husband is faithful. We spend lots of time together, but we never really talk. We go out to dinner and have nothing to say to each other. I'm dying for meaningful conversation, but I get frustrated every time I try because he never engages with me. It feels like we've been married for a million years and it's comfortable, but I want more. How do I get him to talk to me? Hi, Jamie. Thank you so much for your question. Let's first take a look at your feeling here. You say that you are lonely in your marriage, and when we look at the model, we know that lonely is a feeling. So then what is the thought that's creating the loneliness for you? Right now, you think that the fact of your husband not saying much makes you feel lonely. But that's not true. In order for it to be a true circumstance, we actually need more information. How much does he actually say? How much do you think that he should say? If you were filling in your own model, I would ask you to write specific words, and we will use the model for your question. So let me just erase this really quickly. I would ask you to write down specific words. Like, I asked my husband and he said this. Okay, we would put what the words that he said up here in the circumstance line. Some people need 150 words a day and some need 15,000. So what's the right amount in your brain? I want you to ask yourself that. How are we different in how much conversation we like? Let's say that you need 1,500. You'd like 1,500. And your husband only likes 200. And what do you make that mean? What are you making that mean in your life? Right now, you're making it mean that there's a problem. And I've observed this in a lot of couples where one partner loves to talk and the other partner loves to do the talking, right? Opposites attract. And it's likely one of the things that you found attractive with each other in the beginning. You probably viewed it as a strength. Your partner was something that you weren't, and you liked that contrast. And many couples can spend quiet time together and feel quite complete and quite content. So we know that it's not the number of words that someone says that makes them feel complete or content, or the lack of the number of words. So what's causing your feelings of loneliness is your thoughts. And you've got several here. So as I read these back to you, I want you to say them to yourself and notice the feeling that they create, okay? So just let me say it back, and I want you to tune into your body and notice the feeling. What am I feeling? Okay. It feels like we've been married for a million years. How does that feel? Does that feel heavy? Does that feel like drudgery? A million years, that's a long time, right? We have nothing to say to each other, just another thought. When you think the thought, we have nothing to say to each other, it makes you feel what? Maybe disappointed or frustrated or lonely. Another thought, I get frustrated every time I try because he never engages with me. Frustration, right? You say it right there. That's how I feel. Let's take a look at the thought. We have nothing to say to each other. So we'll just put that in the thought line. We have nothing to say. And of course, when we have a thought, we need to know what the thought is about. So we need to fill in the circumstance. So in this situation, we're going to keep it really neutral. And we're going to use your example when we're out to dinner. So we're out to dinner. And your thought is, we have nothing to say. So then what's your feeling? Maybe it's boredom. Maybe it's frustration. Let's put those there. I don't know 100%. You did mention frustration, so we'll just add that. How do you act when you're feeling boredom and frustration? How do you show up with your husband when you're feeling that way, when you're out to dinner? If you have the thought, we have nothing to say to each other while you're out to dinner, then you're definitely going to show up in a bored and frustrated way, right? So you're going to show up bored and frustrated. I'm not going to write that just to save words. You're going to probably close the door on finding something creative to talk about because you just say we have nothing to say, and so you're going to make that true. Close the door on creativity. What else? Maybe you find lots of evidence to make it true. Like you start noticing more that we're being silent, right? Your brain is watching. So you're watching, looking for evidence. You guys know me, my writing's so wonderful. And then maybe you just ruminate, right? Your brain keeps thinking. We always want to say, what do I do more of, or what do I stop doing that I would normally do? In this situation, I imagine you just sit there in silent and kind of stew and ruminate about how little we have to say to each other, right? So then your result is that you stop trying to engage, and it confirms that thought. Like you make it true and make it worse, right? I stop trying to engage and I make it worse. Okay, so you can see the result is always tied back to the thought. The first step for you is just really to observe your thoughts that are creating that loneliness for you. Why are you choosing to think them? When you know that having that thought creates this result for you, do you want to keep that thought? Would you like to change it up? Would you like to find something else to think that feels better? Is it causing you to make you show up in a different way that makes your situation worse? If you need 15,000 words a day and he wants 300, can you fill that need in other ways? Do you have other friends, other people, other family, other people in your life that you can converse with who also like to talk a lot? And here's a question that I think is really helpful for you. Why are you making it his job to take care of that need for you? You're making the fact that you don't talk a lot mean that there's a problem. But what if that's just not true? What if there was nothing wrong at all? Your negative thoughts about your relationship are what is causing you pain. You could absolutely feel connected to your husband by thinking something else. Something like, we know each other so well, we don't need to say much, right? You need to question all of that thinking. And if you've been married for a long time, is it true that you never talk? You have to really ask yourself, do we really never talk? Am I being honest here? That's just a story that your brain is telling you because you want more words. You could choose a different story, like we always communicate when it's necessary. How would that feel? How would that cause you to act? And what would that create for you? Okay, let's go on to Christine. Christine says, I am struggling massively with shame surrounding sex. I think it's because of several things. A very strong religious background and upbringing, and also this strange thought that I cannot allow myself to have fun or enjoy sex. I have always struggled with my self-image and hating on my body, so that is probably part of it as well. How can I overcome my inhibitions and enjoy my sex life more? Christine, thank you so much for being brave and sending this question. You're already understanding a lot of what's creating your struggles here. You you're at the point where you've sort of identified some of the things that you think are the problem. And honestly, you're not alone in this. I spend a lot of my time in coaching clients around the topic of sex and creating more intimacy in their marriages. It's a really vitally important part of a lot of relationships. So the first thing that would be really helpful for you to do is do what we call a thought download. And that's where you take all of those beliefs, all of those thoughts that you've held on to for years around sex, and I want you to write them all down and then look at them on paper. What are those strong beliefs that you've had that you think are causing you to feel that guilt and that shame? And then once you've written all of it down, you can read through them line by line and really observe them and question them. Why are they affecting you this way now? Ask yourself, is this a belief that I want to keep, or is this something I want to rethink? Most of you know that I'm a very spiritual person myself. I'm a Christian and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we really value chastity before marriage and then fidelity after. But sometimes in the teaching of those principles, the message that's received, especially by our youth, is that sex is somehow bad or wrong, especially for women, especially for girls. They get this message. And as young people are going through that maturity and their hormones and bodies are changing, we feel a lot of guilt and shame around being curious and experiencing those natural feelings of sexual desire. So when we're taught that it's wrong to want that, we develop a lot of confusion. Sex is wrong, wrong, wrong. And then suddenly you're married and have a piece of paper that says it's suddenly okay. And you're like, how do I reconcile that in my brain? How do I go from thinking that it's so wrong to now it's just everything's fine? It's a pretty hard transition for a lot of people. And there are a lot of people like yourself who still struggle with reconciling those ideas even years and years later. So there's a Christian sex therapist. Her name is Dr. Jennifer Finlayson Fife. She has a podcast I highly recommend. But she talks about how many women in our society are raised to believe that the role of men in a sexual relationship is to be the desirer. They are to be the ones who desire sex. But the role of women is to be desired. That being a good woman is being the object of desire and being desirable, but never the one wanting or instigating the sex. And I'm not saying that all of this is true for you, but these are some of the main issues that I see when I'm dealing with shame, and perhaps there is something here that's resonating with you. It's also true that women often create the circumstances of their physical bodies in a way that's protective, meaning they don't see themselves as sexual beings who enjoy their bodies or feel confident with their sexuality. So they subconsciously try to become less desirable. And we do that by gaining weight or neglecting our physical appearance. They don't want to be the object of desire. So being less desirable feels more safe and more controlled. For many of us, I would say most of us, the feeling of belonging to ourselves and having control over ourselves is much stronger than our desire to feel pleasure. So there's no question that learning to love and appreciate yourself and all of your physical gifts can really help with improving your self-image. When we don't embrace and enjoy our own sexuality and we feel like it's a duty or that we're expected to service our partner, of course we don't want to engage. There's nothing less sexy than that. than being forced to do something against our will. We value having our own will. We value having that control over ourselves. And so that's something that you have to ask yourself too. Like, is sex something that I really want for myself? Is it something, a part of my life that I want to own for me and own that pleasure for myself? Or is this just something I feel like I'm obliged to do for my husband? I think, Christine, that this might be a difficult thing for you to work through on your own. It would be helpful for you to work with someone who can point out all that thinking to you. We are really often in the weeds on strong topics like this because we're just too close to see it. Our brains believe everything that we think as fact. They want to put everything up here in the circumstance line. So I would really encourage you to book a free call with me and let's see if we can get you some help. I'll give you this, however. I want you to really consider the fact that a woman's body has a greater capacity to experience pleasure than a man's. We're literally built to experience greater sexual pleasure than men are. Why is that? Why is that? Even if you're religious, you still have that body. It might take more work for women to figure things out, but I firmly believe that God created us to be sexual beings and to enjoy that part of our physical experience as humans, or he wouldn't have given us those physical attributes. I believe he wants us to use it as a tool to help us create greater closeness and more connection with our mates. It can be a really beautiful part of your life. All right, quick sip of water. Sometimes when I do a lot of talking, my throat just gets so dry. Let's go to Karen. Karen says, my husband had an emotional affair. We weren't in a good place when this happened. We are still together, been married 27 years. He said it's over and that's why I stayed, but I'm having a real hard time trusting and forgetting. I find myself comparing to her. I find myself comparing myself to her. I feel angry. Oh, sorry. Why her is the question. I feel angry. I know I need to forgive myself, not him, in order to heal. But like all other women, we are very judgmental toward ourselves. I mean, I'm not the first person to go through something like this, and it's very painful, but we still love each other very much. We are best friends. Karen, thank you so much for your question. I have several thoughts here for you. But let's start with the idea of struggling to trust. I was just coaching a client on this very topic last week. And whether we're aware of it, many of us really think that we have this limited amount of trust, that this is your allotment, and once it's gone, it's gone. But I want you to know that that's just a thought. I want all of you to think about this for a minute. How much trust do you think that you have? Do you view it as a limited resource, like just this much? Or do you see it as like an unending waterfall that's constantly flowing with more? That's an option if you want to see it that way. So when we choose to withhold trust, it's usually in an attempt to protect ourselves. If I trust him and he does it again, then I'm an idiot, right? So I've got to be on my guard. I've got to be watchful. I've got to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And when we're doing that, we're making the other person's actions mean something about us. Like we weren't careful enough, and that's why this happened. But the truth is really like, if I trust him and he hurts me again, he's the idiot, not me, right? Why should I have to be the one who has to live in a place of suspicion or feeling untrusting, right? We think that not trusting someone else gives us some control of the situation, but that's so false. Like control is always going to be an illusion. We cannot control other people. They're always going to do whatever they choose. So in order for us to feel like we're in control, we have to feel horrible, right? If we want to feel like we're in control, we have to be suspicious. So I want to have you think for a second about how you want to define yourself. Do you want to be cynical and jaded and skeptical? How do you want to see yourself? Do you always want to be on the lookout for signs that are confirming your suspicions? Or do you want to move through life with your guard up, right? Do you want to be someone who's free of that job? Do you want to give that job away? Just be like, I quit that job. That's not mine. Do you want to be someone who trusts, who loves, and who's willing to be hurt? Because you know that when you feel love, you're also sometimes going to feel hurt. So you know how to feel love. You can create that for yourself again if you want to, right? Who do you want to be? How do you want to be in this situation? How do you want to see yourself? If you really want to forgive him, you absolutely can, but you have to make a conscious decision to do it. Every time your brain reminds you that, oh, this happened, and so we better be careful, you just have to manage your mind and say, I'm not looking at the past anymore. I'm only looking at the future. But thanks for your input. All is well. We're going to be good. So I also want to point out a very painful thought that you're kind of torturing yourself with, and that is the question, why her? This happens so much when people deal with any sort of infidelity, whether it's an emotional affair or a physical affair. We have that question, why her? Okay, so I'm going to put in your circumstance line, husband. Now, we want to be super factual here. Okay, so I don't know how you're defining emotional affair. If we are going to call something an affair, it's usually something that is happening in secret and that there's no knowledge on your end and that it's intentional on his end to keep it a secret. So that's kind of how I define an emotional affair. But we're going to just say, we're going to give you that. We're going to say that's the circumstance. So we're going to say husband had emotional affair with, and then we'll put her name here. Okay. I don't know her name. So we'll let you fill that blank in. And your thought is, why her? When you think the thought, why her? I want you to consider, how does that make you feel? When you say you're comparing yourself, that leads me to think you're feeling maybe jealous or less than. I'm going to just put those two there. Okay. So when you're feeling jealous or less than, your brain goes to work finding all of the reasons why he would choose her over you. Okay. So your brain is trying to answer that question. So your brain looks for answers. What else? How do you show up? Maybe you analyze and criticize yourself. Like you'll compare your physical traits to hers, or maybe even your mental traits to hers. Maybe you think that maybe intellectually she's better in somehow, but we criticize ourselves. And I'm just going to put criticize and compare. Okay. And then you show up hurt, right? Like when you're feeling jealous or we're feeling less than in our relationship, we're still kind of showing up feeling a little hurt, a little betrayed, a little offended. And then so your result, when you ask this question, your result is going to be, you wonder what he sees in you. So I question what he sees in me. And you lose confidence yourself, right? You feel worse about yourself. Why would he choose me? That's the question we ask. Why would he choose me? Clearly, she's much better than I am, right? We just beat ourselves up. So it all starts with this thought, why her? And the truth is, it really doesn't matter why her. That doesn't matter. That's all in the past. And it's really none of your business what anybody thinks about anyone. And you're just going to torture yourself when you compare yourself with anyone else ever. So really question this thought and why your brain wants to choose it. And if you really do, and is your goal that you want to move forward and you want to forgive and forget, that question has just got to be put to bed, right? You stated that your husband's your best friend. And so if you want to know how to move forward, you just ask yourself, what does a best friend do, right? How do we want to relate to each other now? and how we worked through this. Can we be closer because of this, and can we be more vulnerable with each other in talking about what is it that created this, and how can we keep it from happening again? That's really what we want, is to find that closeness again with our spouse. We don't want to be able to trust ourselves or our spouse. We want to have a more trustworthy spouse. And the way that we do that is by opening that dialogue and really talking about the things that are on our hearts and listening and holding space for him to do the same. Okay. It's always tempting for the betrayed spouse to want to take responsibility. And you do that here a little bit when you say, I know I have to forgive myself and not him. And again, that's about trying to control and feel controlled, like feel like you have some control over the situation. We want to think things like, oh, if I were more desirable, this wouldn't have happened. So I better beat myself into shape or become smarter or more whatever, or get plastic surgery. I got to somehow improve myself, right? We think it's our responsibility. And in some cases, there might be some things that you don't like about yourself that you do want to change. But the reason that you change it isn't so that you keep him from leaving. It's so that you can enjoy yourself more in your own skin. Okay. When we think that if we can control how desirable of a human being we are, then our spouse won't stray, we're just deluding ourselves. You can't control someone else and the way that they desire you or love you, or if they'll be faithful. That's all in their model. That's all in the things they think and feel and act. That's all their model. And we know that we as human beings can never control what is in anybody else's model. That's called being an emotional adult, right? At the end of the end of the day, that's their decision. As difficult as that reality is, at the end of the day, we have our agency, and we all get to do and be and act and love the way that we choose, right? So for everyone on the call today, listen up. It's really hard for us, especially women, to comprehend that other people are not as critical of our bodies as we are. If we think that we are fat or ugly or untalented, we 100% believe that other people are thinking that too, but it's just not true. Most of the time, we're way harder on ourselves than our partners would ever be on us. So, of course, there are some instances where there are spouses who are critical of their partner's appearance. That is something I can help with on both sides of that coin. But for the most part, we view ourselves 10 times worse than our partner ever would. So it's all our thoughts. And just because we think something doesn't make it true. All right. I hope that's helpful, Karen. All right. Oh, we are at time. Let's do one more. Hope says, my husband is very demanding. He gets upset when dinner isn't ready on time or when things don't go as planned. He's rude to our servers at restaurants and pouts and acts angry when he's mad. When we have a disagreement, he throws a fit, slams the door hard, and leaves angry. I cry and feel sad, distant and lonely. Then he shows up later and pretends that nothing ever happened, and he expects me to be happy. I want to talk things through, but he just won't. Sorry. I want to talk things through, but he just won't. I know I can't change him, but how can I accept it and feel okay with it? How can I move forward living with him? Hope, thank you for your question. I promised to get to you, so I hope this is helpful. We'll try to be quick. For those of you who need to leave, you totally can. First of all, we never want to force ourselves to feel good about something that we don't. Not ever. If we don't have to approve of anybody's behavior that we find that is unacceptable, or excuse treatment that we feel is manipulative or abusive. Not only does it not work, but we diminish our sense of self. It's truly a form of dishonesty when we aren't living in congruence with our own principles and our own beliefs. So you get to decide what you want to believe about your husband and his actions, and you get to decide how you want to show up in the relationship. And right now, you're giving away your emotional power to his actions and his words. You're upset about him being upset, and that's a form of codependency. Anytime you allow someone else's behavior and feelings to manipulate and control your own feelings and behavior, you're not operating in emotional maturity. So I'm not saying that you want to feel good about his choices. That's not it at all. But the question always needs to be, what is the appropriate feeling for me in this circumstance? Do I want to feel upset just because he's upset about dinner being late? Or do I want to enjoy my day? And if so, what does that look like? Maybe it means that I enjoy dinner out on my own and I let him figure out his own meal, right? Your power lies in your model. What you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're creating for yourself, okay? How you're acting. So if husband says, why isn't dinner ready yet? And you have the thought he's so demanding, and that makes you feel resentful and unappreciated, your actions are like you get upset, you disconnect, you see him as the villain in your story, right? You see yourself as the victim. That's how this is playing out for you. And then at the end of the day, that thought that he's so demanding, well, really, you're demanding too, because you're expecting him to create a way for yourself to feel better. It's not his job, right? Our job is to take care of our own emotional health. So just being aware of how that's playing out for you can really help you to observe your interactions in the future with him and to really make some conscious choices for yourself. But as long as you believe that he has the ability to control how you feel, you're going to be miserable. You have to take that power back. And that's really what I do as a marriage coach. I help you reclaim your power, not only to enjoy your freedom, but also your relationships again. So, all right, my friends, that's all the time we have for today. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have a question that you'd like to ask, I do these classes every month. So go ahead and submit your question by emailing me. You can reply to any of the emails that I send to your email. My Monday motivation, if you're not on that list, go ahead and go to my website and get signed up so you can get that good information coming to you every week. And I'll try to add your question to my next call. I always try to pick the questions that I think will benefit the most number of people. So if I don't get to yours, I really apologize, but I'm doing my best. And of course, if you want to talk with me one-on-one, feel free to schedule a call with me. We can chat about your situation and see if you're a good fit for my really intensive 6-month Mend Your Marriage course. It's fantastic, and you get live one-on-one coaching with me every single week. So have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I hope you guys have a happy day. Bye.